Where to Hunt podcast. It's okay.
Hi, I'm Dan Small, host of Outdoor Wisconsin, and I listen to Where to Hunt.
It's okay.
I'm Kurt Geyer with Working Class Bow Hunter. I listen to Where to Hunt podcast, and it's decent.
It's all right.
Hey, this is Bud Fisher with Catching Deers, and I think the Where to Hunt podcast is all right.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Where to Hunt podcast, the podcast that connects public land in Tuesdays. Today is Tuesday, April 13th. This is episode 178-ish. We're coming at you from the OK Center podcast studio, and Greg's coming at you from his OK Center podcast studio. We are together but apart.
I'm in the sunroom, baby.
Looks great. That's right. I got my scotch.
Not much sun, but I have a room.
Nice. Well, hey, everybody, if you haven't heard of the OKS Hunter, by the way, which I think if you listen to the show, you obviously have, you're looking at them, can go to okshunter.com. And if you find some stuff you like there, like a turkey sticker, I know they're running a BOGO right now. Buy one, get one half off. You can use code W2H podcast for 10% off, or you can use Gobble Boom for the BOGO on the turkey stickers. So that's kind of neat. Also, I'll play a nice ad from our friends over at Backwoods Grind.
Wake up and smell the coffee. Backwoods Grind coffee, that is. Now, this ain't your fancy schmancy city boy coffee. This is what your grandpappy used to drink. And lucky enough for you loaf-around slack asses, they got a subscription service. Deliver any of their 6 blends right to your door. Even a sampler. I like the Fireside blend. Nice and dark. But they got something to suit every one of your tastes. Light to dark and everything in between. Backwoods Grind coffee. For those who work hard and play harder.
So also their code for everybody that wants to buy their coffee, which, man, a lot of you guys that listen have. So thanks for supporting those guys. You can use code W2H podcast for 10% off. And, based on our topic today, we're going to bring on our guest, Mitch Baker. We're going to talk about some of the spring hearing stuff here in Wisconsin with the DNR, what you can do to get involved, what the hell he's been up to, because it's been a while since he's been with us. Last time he was on the show, he was in studio. So today he's joining us virtually. And we're going to talk about some Spartan Forge stuff too later on. So stand by for that.
Sure. I think before we get rolling with that, though, we might have to pay a little respect to some friends of ours in the podcast world. And I think you know where I'm heading here. He is a voice on our intro.
Yep.
Sadly, our friend Kurt Geyer's father passed away.
Which is super sad. I got to meet him for only a little tiny bit at their shoot 2 years ago. I didn't make it last year, but I sent a text to Kurt, my condolences, and I can't imagine what he's going through with that. If I were to lose my dad, I would be broken. So, sorry for your loss, Kurt. And you've been a great help to our show over the years. We support you. You've supported us. You've helped us with our technology. You've been a guest. You've been super humble, and so sorry to hear about that, man.
Yeah. So, raise a drink to Dave. All right.
Other than that somber tone, Greg, how are you doing today?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Happy to be here. How are you?
I think I'm good. It's a good day. It's a good day. I've been thinking about deer. I really want I'm excited to get my mount back. So
I bet.
I don't know. I've just been. It doesn't take me long to I hunt hard. And then the season ends, and I kind of cut loose completely for a little bit. But then I've been shooting my bow in the basement, so now it's been creeping back in slowly. So I have a feeling I'm going to be a little worse off this year as far as buck fever is concerned.
Keep shooting your bow and keep concentrating on the target at hand, and I think you'll be fine.
Yeah. No, anyway, so I'm looking forward to, but it's gonna be a good episode. Talk with Mitch here. We'll bring him on and talk about maybe how we can have a voice in some of this stuff. So, Mitch, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Doing well, fellas. Good to see you guys.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to be in person, but
You still look just
at
as
the
young and fit as ever.
okayest. Well, I appreciate that. That's because the camera's blurry.
Yeah. Okay. Mister, I run 5 miles a day or more.
I gotta work. Gotta keep working, man. You gotta have goals. I was having a conversation about that earlier today. Like, why is it so hard to resist the cookies and the things when they're in your house and do the right things? And it's like, I have a vision in my mind that is 20 years from now that I just callous over all those like wants from today with that goal for 20 years from now. Having a little one in the house, it's like when I go on adventures with her 20 years from now, I want her to be the one that can't keep up. So that's a daily commitment at my age.
You can put a cookie on a stick and dangle it in front of you.
Yeah.
That's great. No, and you did the
That said, I was planning on having a beer with you guys tonight, but I was in such a rush I didn't bring one with me.
We'll drink some. There's a little bit of a lag, so I'll try to be mindful of that. I know I'm good at interrupting. But also, you did the 4x4x48, the Dave Goggins challenge. Also,
yeah,
you're the only person I know that's done that in my circle of influence.
Yeah, and you know a lot of people.
I know. Maybe there's some that did that I don't know about, but you did it, man. I watched along, I followed along, and I was slightly envious. There's like some event happening that weekend that I couldn't get out of, so I was like, not like it's an excuse, but I was almost a little relieved because I thought I would have tried to have done it. A couple of friends wanted to do it with me. I was like, I can't. I actually got to do this thing, and I was serious. I couldn't do it.
Well, next year when it happens, I'm going to be dragging some people along with me, and now you're on that list.
Thank you.
So keep that in mind.
Foot in mouth.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to have everybody following along. You know, people send me messages like, "This is the most entertaining thing on social media this weekend." You know, I kept every run I did. For those who don't know, it's every 4 hours we'd run 4 miles, and for 48 hours. So get through 48 miles in a weekend is something I've never even come close to attempting before. But
your body had to not be very happy with you after that.
You know, it went pretty good till the 10th run. So whatever that is, 40 hours in. And, you know, the big part about it is you're not getting sleep. You're getting however long it takes you to run 4 miles. And then you have whatever's left of your 4 hours to rest before you get started again. So we started at 10 p.m. and did another run at 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. and 10 and 2 and around the clock for 2 days. So yeah, you don't really have a good time to recover. So at the 10th run, I was starting to feel a little twinge in my left knee, just some pain towards the end. And the 11th run, it was the first 2.5 miles. That twinge was more than a twinge, and eventually worked my way out of it. So the last 1.5 miles of that run was pretty good. Actually had good time. And then the very last run at 6 p.m. on Sunday night was solid until about the last 100 yards, and I could feel that knee again. But
wow,
we got through it, man. That's just part of it. I mean, once you go so far, you know that you're gonna, if you have to spend 2 hours walking the last 2 legs of it, that's just what you're gonna do.
What's your average run time for 4 miles? I feel like, God, I would be the asshat that would have like an hour left before the next run. I would just eventually overlap them. I would be like, shit, I haven't been able to rest.
Well, you know, if I'm just going to go out and run 4 miles one day, you know, I can do that in a relatively, you know, something like 8.5 minute miles. But knowing that I was leading up to that, I was kind of figuring on running 10-minute miles. And when I started out, I actually started out slower than that. And I was on the treadmill on the first couple legs because, 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. on the back roads in the dark on curvy, windy roads covered with beer cans is
No,
I just didn't think it was probably worthwhile. But
not in your neighborhood.
yeah, running. Yeah, no, my neighborhood.
Well, the way my father-in-law
running
used to
slow.
drive down those roads, I don't think that's a good place to be running.
No, definitely not. So that running actually slower than is a comfortable pace, I found that to actually be, it felt like it beat me up more than if I was just running at that 10-minute pace that I'd planned on. Kind of at the end, right at the last minute, I'd read some advice of people like, take it slow when you start. And I heeded that advice, and I don't know if it was beneficial to me or not. Maybe it just beat me up a little more. But
fascinating, man. What a cool accomplishment, though.
There were some cool stories that came out of it. People just that couldn't even, walk a mile hardly, but they would take like 40 minutes to just like stand up and sit down out of their chair. And the people I've kind of caught on some Facebook groups through that are pretty inspirational. Just inspirational stories of pulling yourself up out of, a place that people can easily continue in a downward spiral. So I found a lot of inspiration through that event.
Yeah, I think that was the purpose to a degree, was to bring people together no matter where they were at the same time, regardless what time zone you're in, that you're going to be participating in this collectively, suffering.
It was awesome. Yeah. And we raised a ton of money all over the world for different charities, and we were able to raise over like around $1,100 in just donations from people on Facebook. And I didn't set that up until like the week before. So for the Boys and Girls Club here in our little town. So
it's awesome. Well,
pretty sweet.
So that's why you look so good. See, that's what I'm saying, man. You just look like a young man, a young buck. But I think we reached out to you to bring you back on here. I think last time we talked to quite a bit about CWD, and I think that's a flavor of the conversation today. It'll probably come up. But there's spring hearings that are starting to go on here in Wisconsin, and it's an opportunity to be heard. And I know that you sit on some committee, like more so related to environmental. But what has your experience been like having your voice heard? Where do you go? How does it work? What's the impact? Do you feel like you have an impact? All of that stuff. Maybe just kind of introduce the whole topic as someone that is participating in that stuff.
Yeah. When I moved back to Wisconsin from being, living kind of all over the country for a little while, I found that there was in Wisconsin these county deer advisory councils, and I never heard of that before in other states. And then there were these spring hearings for the Wisconsin Conservation Congress, which is also unique to Wisconsin. So we showed up, and they were taking nominations for, does anybody want to be a delegate? And my wife nominated me, and people voted for me inexplicably. There's probably 100 people at this in-person meeting, and do you want to say something about yourself? And whatever I said must have resonated with some people, and I got voted on. It was, and I was in the fire then, but what I found is Wisconsin's so unique that they provide so many opportunities for people to provide their input. It's not something that happens in most states. A lot of states have, some legislation coming through or something coming with the Game and Fish Agency, and you can provide input, but it's not like a series of questions like is done here. And you all in the Conservation Congress, each county has 5 delegates in their county, so you can go and talk to those people and say, find out what it is that this question means, you can go and write your own question and have it submitted to the hearings. So, you know, I got dipped in pretty quick and then decided, you know, I better start learning about all this stuff and see how it works. And it's just a tremendous opportunity in this state.
There's a lot of people that have something that they want to say or, you know, complain about. And I think having an opportunity to hear your voice literally be heard is, even if it doesn't change the trajectory of what's happening, it still means something to be heard. You know?
Absolutely. You can look at it on a tally. Like, it shows up on a list of, you know, so many people provided this input and so many people are for and so many people were against this. And, you know, then the delegates and the people in the Conservation Congress have to sort of figure out how to manage that input to try to make the most people happy while also taking into account what's best for the resource. So it's not like a ballot initiative where majority just rules, but it's a way for the Congress to gather input that can help make decisions.
And what state
better than a lot of states do.
And which state were you in before that you have some experience to kind of compare and contrast a little bit there?
You know, I lived in Arizona for several years and lived in Michigan. I didn't get too involved in Michigan and that sort of thing, but Arizona, Montana, I've hunted a lot in Montana. So, you know, now the way a lot of states do things is they put something on a ballot initiative. And that's how you see, like out in California, there's no mountain lion hunting. You know, that just went on a general ballot initiative at the voter box, and
no one knew.
The question was probably something like, are you in favor of killing mountain lions? And, you know, most of the general population is going to say, no, because only 5% of the population really hunts. Everybody looks at mountain lions and most predators as cuddly things that you need to take care of, and
that are noble or like
same thing,
or, you know, whatever. And yeah, and they phrase it, like you said, in such a way where they're trying to coerce a certain action by like asking a leading question.
Yeah, and when you do that to the general populace, you have a pretty good idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, you know what's going to happen.
Because
I wouldn't even want that. I would answer no to that question. No, I don't want them just to be needlessly killed. Like, what the hell? But if you're trying to manage a population, that's different.
And being informed on those issues, which a lot of these questions in the spring hearings is, they give you a little bit of background. And on the DNR website, there's plenty of information that you can look into on there to find out, you know, what it's all about. Because if you look at, going back to the California mountain lion issue, you know, the same amount of mountain lions end up getting killed out there. They just pay professional people to come in and kill those mountain lions because there's enough nuisance mountain lions that aren't being managed. So they're spending money to get rid of the mountain lions rather than having hunters pay for the opportunity to get rid of the mountain lions and putting that money towards, you know, habitat and other things that hunting does for wildlife. So it's really, here we have so much better of an opportunity than doing something like a ballot initiative where they, you know, they do that kind of all across the country. And that's where you lose, like in Colorado, they banned spring bear hunting. Is that right? Yeah, they banned spring bear hunting a while back, which is, you know, a good time to hunt bears. And the fall hunting season is, you know, people are out elk hunting and deer hunting, so it's pretty low on the priority list. And now they have a tremendous problem with black bears in Colorado. Like, they're just trying to figure out how to deal with them.
Well, one of our comments that just came through from Ryan with Tears and Beers, he said they got rid of dove hunting in Michigan based on ballot voting a few years ago. So there's another example. Who else is from Michigan? Comment. Right. I know we got a few folks hanging out here on the live broadcast with us, so feel free to comment or call in or pop in. I'll go ahead and share the video link if anyone wants to join us. But No, I think
Yeah,
I think
I
to
also
your
used to
point,
live in Michigan.
yeah, you've been around then, huh?
Yeah.
I know we got a few folks hanging out here on the live broadcast with us, so feel free to comment or call in or pop in. Like anyone wants to join us. But
where's that feedback coming from?
I think
I don't think I'm doing it. Am I doing it?
Is that Greg?
Oh, it's got to be you, Eric.
That's possible, but you're laughing over there, so I don't know. You clicking buttons over there, Greg?
Oh, don't worry about it. It's fine. We're good.
I was Greg. It might be neat. I gotta.
That's been great.
Oh, it's got to be you, Eric.
I'm gonna drop a link here. Well, that just totally got me all sidetracked and kittywampus. We can't do this podcast without a glitch. It's the OKS podcast, guys. Which is how it works.
I did it just for you.
Uh-huh.
I trust there'd be something. I thought I was going to be the glitch to start with.
Oh,
thanks for taking the heat off me.
No problem.
Craig's a real son of a bitch.
Well, got to be good at something.
Well, I mean, Greg, have you ever attended these things? I know. So actually, a buddy of mine, Scott Ford, I know he listens from time to time. He pops in here every now and again. He like makes a pretty big stink about, hey, if you see someone bitching on a forum or a post, he's like, go to the hearing. Quit bitching.
Right.
Go get your voice heard.
I have an uncle that got me and my dad to go to a couple of them. Ours are held over in Jefferson usually, and there's usually a pretty big turnout there. But I haven't attended one. Last year I thought about doing it, but we had the whole COVID thing, and this year it's still kind of throwing a wrench and stuff. So, but I think I'm gonna log on and probably go look at filling out the whole questionnaire.
Yeah, it doesn't take too long.
No,
a lot of it's fisheries stuff that, they're talking about lakes. Do you support, changing the slot limit on some lake that, you've never fished on? And
right.
I just trust that. For one, I trust that the fisheries biologists are doing that for a good reason.
Right.
But a lot of them I just put no opinion on because, I just don't know enough about it.
You don't want to.
And that's the thing is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing is, people that think that they need to get their voice heard on Facebook and in the comment section of some video, that's not the right way to do it, because most of the time that's just uneducated, barstool biology talk. If you want to be involved and you want to comment on something, it's super easy to just dig in a little bit and find out what exactly is going on before you spout off your opinions.
And that's like with anything, but when you have an opportunity to get your voice actually heard, it's what you're going to say in a public setting audibly is going to be very different than what you're going to say on a social media channel at a keyboard. I think you're going to think twice before opening your mouth to some degree. Maybe not, but I went to a hearing a number of years ago, 3-ish years ago, right around the time my daughter was being born. So it must have been 3-ish years ago. They were going to open up hunting to a local county park. And there was like concern from both sides. It was interesting to be a part of that. And I definitely spoke up. There was like talk of, are you going to shoot my kid with your bow? Nah, hopefully not. Like, no one bow hunter is going to shoot your kid,
Yeah.
But there people that don't hunt, they don't understand some of those things. So those people get a chance to speak up too, right? They have concerns also. And it's good to not be a jackass to them.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're going to perpetuate.
You'd rather have a bunch of non-hunters than have a bunch of anti-hunters.
Yep.
And
it's like you have a promoter, a passive person, or a detractor. A non-hunter would be a detractor. They'll go out of their way to say something bad and break it down. A passive person, they're neutral. They're right in the middle. They'll take it either way, depending on what influence they have. They could care less. And a promoter is someone that does love hunting. So I think you have 3 camps there to be concerned with, and knowing who you're kind of talking to on the other end of that conversation is important.
Yeah, I used to get more into commentary on Facebook and things, but it just, it's so time consuming, and a lot of the people, you can kind of read that you're not going to convince them.
No, there's no debate with them. It's my way or the highway.
But sometimes I'll go on, and if it's something that's reasonable, and I think that me commenting on it could help others see what the truth might be, then I will. I'll do it for informational purposes. I'm not going to argue with somebody because that's a waste of my time. But I'll only do that in cases where I absolutely know that they don't know what they're talking about.
For the record, I don't know what I'm talking about almost ever. So don't ever argue with me because I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. It'd be a waste of your time. You're right.
Yeah, but you know enough to know that.
Yeah. Well, self-awareness goes a long way. So I know my deficiencies are pretty acutely. But some of the questions that were on, this is if you just Google DNR Spring Hearings, you're going to get to some of the information that we're talking about here. And if you're in Wisconsin, it may be of more interest to you than if you're not, for those listening. But I scrolled to the deer and elk committee because I think that's more centric to what this podcast is about, by and large, albeit it is turkey season. But there are only 3 questions under that category. So it's 12, 13, and 14. And it's number 12 is implementing CWD best management practices. And then the question, the way they phrase it, what they have is, would you support the governor, Wisconsin legislators, and the NRB and DNR secretary uniting to implement and so this is where I don't even know what the AFWA is. I tried to Google it and figure it out. AFWA best management practices for prevention, surveillance, and management. Thank you. And of chronic wasting disease to control the spread and slow the increasing rate of prevalence of CWD in Wisconsin. So we have the worst CWD population in the country in Wisconsin, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, especially as far as whitetails go, we have the largest concentration of CWD positives across the state, and they do testing kind of in areas that have never had CWD, but they try to get so many samples from different areas just to check and make sure it's not getting into those areas. So they do a lot of testing in areas that don't have it, but overall the state was 8% last year CWD positive, and that's incredibly high. Illinois got CWD or found CWD the same time that we did, and they don't have a county that's, I think they maybe have 1 or 2 counties that are in the 5% range, and the statewide is less than 1%. So we've managed it much different than they have, and we have areas like Sauk County here, 26% CWD positive, and the bulk of that is in the southern part of the county and spreading. So we have a big problem here. It's spreading. You can look at it on maps, and it's just like like you would expect something to spread, just radially out from a center point that's just growing outward.
Sure.
And doing things to slow it down is probably really important for us, because we don't know if there's going to be a solution on the horizon. There's a lot of people working on it, but if they do find something, you want it to be a smaller area to deal with if you're going to come in and try to deal with whatever it is, vaccination, or there's ways that they can drop pellets for animals to eat. Obviously that doesn't apply to CWD right now, but who knows what it'll look like. The smaller the geographic area and the less deer that have it, the better, if you come to the point where you need to treat it. So Yeah, the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, AFWA.
Thank you. I was just going to ask you. Thank you for jumping back into that.
Yeah, they came up with a best management practices document, I think in 2018, and it goes through all the scenarios when you first find CWD. These are things that you should do when it's below a certain percentage, in the deer population. It's a really comprehensive document, and I think it's a really good idea that we go along with that, because that's Fish and Wildlife agencies from across the country all coming to a consensus on what science says is the best way we can probably mitigate the impacts of it best we can for now until we come up with a solution.
Sure.
So yeah,
just a couple
that's something I think we should do.
Ryan, Mitch, can you discuss the changes your government is proposing to combat CWD? So you kind of touch on that. So he's out of Michigan, if you recall. So he's asking how Wisconsin's proposing to combat CWD. And there's a couple of initiatives going on. I actually had messaged Doug Duran to see if he was just happenstance around, to see if he wanted to chime in with his 2 cents. And his 2 cents is more like, $1, but
yeah.
But what are some of the things that you're aware of?
Well, deer carcass disposal is our number one mission. I talk to Doug pretty much every week, and we, discuss what we're trying to accomplish and where we are in that. But the main thing we've been working on is deer carcass disposal. And when you are hunting in an area that over a quarter of the deer in our county have CWD, taking the remains of that deer after you've cut the meat out of it and disposing of it in a landfill rather than just throwing it in a ditch or throwing it on the back 40, or people dump them everywhere. That's one of the most important things that you can do, because those CWD prions are concentrated in the spinal column and the brain. So when you throw a spinal column and a head out on the landscape, those prions bind to that soil, they bind to plants, and another deer comes along and has contact with that spot. It's a really good way for the disease to spread. So, we in Sauk County, our dumpster initiative last year, we collected over 44 tons of deer carcasses.
Holy cow.
That's disgusting.
In 5 sites. Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot of deer.
It's a lot of deer.
When you break it down by percentage, you look at 44 tons of deer and you take 26% of that. That's 11 tons of potentially CWD infected deer carcasses that are not laying out there for the next deer to come in contact with. So 11 plus tons kept off the landscape by just having 5 dumpster sites out in Sauk County.
Then
there's certain landfills that accept them. Just clay line landfills is all it takes. The prion binds to clay. So in the landfills, they layer. I don't know if you've ever seen a landfill system, but it's it's a lasagna. They do different layers of dirt and rubber and all kinds of stuff. But with that clay, there's a concern sometimes like, it's going to seep down through. When it contacts clay, it binds to it. So the thought is that it's safe in those landfills. So that's the main thing that we're trying to do now. I mean, we're trying to get dumpsters spread out across the state and just kind of make disposing of deer carcasses like a cultural thing that's normal. in Richland County, where Doug's from, they collected 71 tons of deer carcasses last year. And that's like 40% of the deer taken in Richland County. When you kind of estimate like maybe about 55 pounds per deer carcass after they're cleaned out, you take 71 tons. That's a large percentage of what they shot in Richland County last year. So,
and some of the
they're
guys
doing a really good job.
Say some of the guys that are butchering their own deer, they're throwing them in maybe their trash can, and those will end up in the landfill too. We're really speaking of the guys and
Hopefully.
gals that are just going to leave them somewhere or dump them somewhere, right?
Yeah, a lot of because when you end up with a rib cage and a spinal column and a head attached to it, that's a big thing that then you have to break down further. And I think it's people just it'd be easier just to go out where that public land is and just toss it out. The coyotes will eat it. Yeah, I think
right. Circle of life.
It's not really considered something that by a lot of people that is a big deal.
Yep.
And here in this situation, it really can be. I mean, it can impact the deer herd, really.
So are you worried about human transmission? Is the science clear yet?
No, the science isn't clear yet. It's clear that we can't say that it's impossible. We look at, am I concerned? I'm not going to eat one that's CWD positive. It's just not worth taking the chance. I'm sure not going to feed it to my family. There's quite a few deer out there. There's unlimited amount of tags virtually. The science doesn't say that humans can get it, but CWD is in the same family as mad cow disease. And mad cow disease jumped to humans. It probably didn't start out as something that was jumped to humans, but as we all know, because we're all experts in viruses now, that they mutate and they have the potential to mutate. And just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean that I'm willing to take the chance that it won't. There's some of those transmissible spongiform encephalopathies, which is the class of disease it is, that have taken decades to show up in their host and have people affected by them. So we just don't know. It's relatively new that people have been consuming them at the rate that they probably are now. There's been CWD out west in wild deer since like 1980 is around the first time they found it in wild animals. They found it in research facility in the 60s. But there's been here in Wisconsin, just the density of deer that have it has just been climbing and climbing over the last decade. And, who knows whether it's something that's the more you take in, the more chance you have of contracting something or maybe it's a longer time frame. Like I said, it's just not something I'm worth.
Yeah. No, but it's
worth taking a chance on.
Joe Rogan did a podcast on it. Forget who he had on.
He had Doug Dern on.
Michael Oldham.
Yeah, there's another
that too.
Yeah, and a biologist.
Thank you. And it was like
Richards.
Super deep, fascinating podcast about all. So if you want to learn more about that, find that podcast, and you'll be enlightened quite a bit, I would imagine.
Yeah, it was a pretty intense deep dive on it.
Yeah, he had Doug and Brian Richards on one point, but then he also later, when CWD first started, like a year ago, Joe had on Dr. Michael Osterham, I think is his name.
Isabel.
He's out of Michigan or Minnesota, and they were talking about when COVID-19 first started, but they also talked about CWD quite a bit, and it was pretty interesting how he kind of tied the two together. Like, so anyway, not something I'm going to mess with. I'll test all of my deer. It doesn't cost anything. It's pretty easy, and well worthwhile for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's interesting because the things that they're talking about these hearings, some of these things can get fairly controversial. The other two questions that I see on here, one was, around using high fences to alter natural wildlife movement. And the question, which these questions are long, so I feel weird reading it verbatim, but would you support the Conservation Congress working with the NRB to enact administrative rules which would further define the use of deer-proof fences or similar barriers that inhibit the natural movement of wildlife, like the illegal taking of wildlife, to prevent privatization of Wisconsin's public resources through the construction of these facilities? That's such a dense question. There's a couple of questions in there. I think there's
pluses and minuses to this, and everybody's going to look at that and go, well, you're trying to privatize deer hunting on your property if you put this up. So I can see where that's going to lead to a lot of negative comment.
Yeah. I mean, the way I understand that is that when you build tall fences to make sure that wildlife come where you want them to, that comes to an ethical question in my mind. Like, it's one thing to cut down a few trees so that they, deer come closer to where your tree stand is, but you start putting up big tall fences that funnel them onto your property and keep them from, being able to cross over to your neighbors at any point along the fence line.
Asking, like, are you against
ethical question?
Yeah, it is. Well, and oddly enough, just because it's talking about like alter natural wildlife movement, I wanted to make a point to talk about Spartan Forage because their app helps predict deer movement, and they have millions of data points they've collected over the last 5-ish years that have created data models that don't exist. They're objectively accurate. I think their models are like over 60% accurate in terms of what the average deer is going to do. So if you're concerned about how or where or when deer are going to move through a certain property, you might want to take a look at that first. But if we're considering putting a fence in for personal gain to make sure that there's deer on your property, that's ethical. And it's your property, so you can do what you want. But if you're starting to mess with the greater ecosystem and you're putting some things in place, skirting around certain laws, if you're doing something wrong. We still remember being a kid. It's either right or it's either wrong, and you know what the hell you're doing.
The deer are not your property. Doesn't matter how many are on your property. Those belong to the citizens of the state in whole, not you as an individual. Doesn't matter if you feed them year round with your crops. They're not yours. So there was a case up in west central Wisconsin that I read about where a deer farm actually, high fenced hunting operation had built some fences to help funnel some wild outside deer in to their facility, and they got caught doing so. And part of the problem too was that they found when it was investigated, they found that there was a gap in the fence, and I think they investigated it because there was a CWD positive deer.
I read about
that came off of that farm. So here they had a gap in the fence, and they had CWD positive deer on that farm that could come out. So that moves beyond just ethics. That's potentially contaminating the wild deer herd with a disease that has no end to it at this point. So
A buddy of mine, his
tough
dad
one.
got a deer
I
farm,
mean, it's
but
pretty easy for me.
yeah, no, it is. But to read the question, it gets really complicated. I'm like, wait, which side are they talking about here? Are they saying I should be for this or against this? Like, I want to be against it, but the question was worded very densely. So just read through it, think about it, read it again, and try to understand what it's actually saying. If you're like me, you glaze over things quickly. You need to, you need to do that. But again, a controversial topic. There's some people that would, I don't know, maybe before that. I don't know who those people are, but they might be out there. And then this other one, I don't know how I feel about. I really don't have a strong opinion one way or the other, but it talks about the white deer season. And they're asking, would you support legalizing the harvest of white, not albino deer statewide? So that includes what they're calling a white deer. I don't know the specific definition of a white deer. I think they kind of break that down in the questionnaire here.
Yeah. Yeah, we've heard in our county CDAC meetings, there's people that show up every year and provide commentary that say, we need to get a season for these white deer because there's so many of them where I hunt that I find it hard to be able to shoot a deer that isn't white or doesn't have some white on it, abnormal white.
Sure.
So there's pockets of this recessive mutation of deer that it's just perpetuated and creating, small herds of white deer, not albino deer, but white.
Piebald.
So it's, there's a lot of people calling for it because it's, it can be an issue because you need to be able to manage. I mean, what this is all about, managing resources, including deer, including habitat, including forests. So it makes it hard to do that when you can't manage the deer. At least that's what I see this question looking at. And all the commentary that I've heard on it is people just, in CWD areas, we want to reduce the deer densities, and there's pockets where you can't shoot these white deer, so it's hard to do that. So that's the argument I hear for the white deer season.
I don't know why you wouldn't. I think it might get difficult to properly identify a white deer versus an albino deer and make that call. So if one is legal and the other isn't, it'd be a lot easier to have a whoops. If that deer's white, what are the signals that it's an albino deer? The red eyes, or what are you looking for there then? And if you can't pick that out, like maybe you'll shoot it because you're excited. I don't know. It just feels like it could create some turmoil in that sense. But otherwise, deer's a deer, right?
Yeah.
We
have people shoot elk during gun season every year, so
which just slays me.
That's just a problem where people need to be better educated and know the rules. And most people go out there and don't know if they see a white deer, they don't know whether they can shoot it or not.
My default is if I don't know, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, that's my default too.
So people have the opposite default of that. If I don't know, well, it's not like you're asking parents to go to the park and ask for forgiveness later. That's not what's happening. Like, you're going to get ticketed, fined, your stuff's going to get taken away. Like, most people seem to be following some sort of protocol. Like, don't do that.
I think some people look at it like, oh, I've seen these shot before on, in a magazine, or, it must be legal because I saw it. I saw some news story where somebody shot one. It's hard to tell. It might be my only opportunity. That phrase right there is I don't know how to.
A bad place to find yourself.
It's a recipe for disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a recipe for disaster no matter what situation you're in.
Yep. It's interesting though that people have different ways of, I don't know, one bad egg can ruin it for the bunch, I suppose. The example I use is like, there's a meme I saw a number of years ago. There's like a sign, like a piece of paper taped to like the milk department glass door of like a grocery store. This is not an exit. And it just means that someone tried to can do that before. Like what? And now, so there has to be a sign here because the rest of us apparently don't know that this is an exit. You should know better.
Yeah. Well, that's why everything's labeled now, because if it's not, you get sued.
Yeah. Yeah, Ryan's joking. He says, if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much space. Oh boy. That's a cool thought. So there's obviously plenty more topics that exist on here that are outside of deer and elk. There's all sorts of different committees, like you had mentioned. So some of them are irrelevant to anything that I'm going to know about, which is why I'd probably put no opinion on a lot of them. But the areas that are concerned, like get in there and take a look around and see what kind of trips your trigger a little bit. And if you want to be heard, this is a good way. And then, so what happens from here? What happens after these questions are answered, Mitch?
Well, I was just thinking that I might even start before right now. Go back in time a week or two. Everybody has the opportunity to introduce their own citizen resolution. Like if you have a good idea, you think is a good idea, like, hey, I think we should be able to hunt white deer, whatever it is. Matter of fact, once upon a time, a guy said, you know what, I think after turkey tag draw is done, we should be able to take the excess tags and sell them first come, first serve. That was a citizen idea that was put through this process. And what happens is you present your question at your county. If the people in your county support it more than don't, it gets moved on to one of these committees. And the committees take a look at it, decide whether, they have the author come and they talk about it and decide whether it's something that can work with and move on up the chain. And then the district leadership in the Conservation Congress, if you move it up, will take a look at it and decide whether they're going to put it on the next year's spring hearings. And that's what these advisory questions that we're looking at here is questions that came from, at least in the advisory section, questions that came from citizens that went through the processes, and now here they are. So if they get through the statewide, everybody will see them in their individual counties across the state. If that, after the input this week, then the delegates will go get together from each county and decide whether they're going to move that on up the chain to the Conservation Congress Executive Committee, who will move it on to the Natural Resources Board to potentially move it through into law or statute or rule, whatever the case may be. So, yeah, anybody can write their own question, and that's how the process works.
Yeah, or question or propose an idea, right? It doesn't have to be like, in the form of a question, but it could be like, hey, here's a possible idea or something like that.
Yeah, there's kind of there's a template on the DNR's website under the Conservation Congress. So it just tells you, propose your idea, ask a question like, will you support this? And then it goes just like any other question. It shows up in the online version. It shows up if, like mine is Sauk County. I put in Sauk County. So there was like 5 or 6 questions submitted by Sauk County residents in this manner. So we in Sauk County will be the only ones that see those ones, and then they'll go to committee if they pass.
So forth. Boy, that just makes me want to try to come up with a question. I have a couple.
I put one forward this year.
Yeah. Am I seeing it on anywhere?
Yeah. You won't see it just in our county. Hopefully you'll see it next year.
Or maybe, yeah, we'll see.
On the statewide.
That's cool. It's good stuff. I mean, and are the hearings they virtual this year? Are they in person? Are they hybrid?
They're virtual.
Okay.
Yeah, virtual this year.
Should get more
typically you show up. Yeah, it was incredible the amount of input we had last year. I think it was like 65,000 people submitted input last year.
Wow.
On the spring hearings, and previous to that, the record was, under half that, I believe, and that was when there was something really controversial happening.
Mm-hmm.
So, luckily, in 2019, they went to having an online option. Prior to 2019, there wasn't even an online option.
Sure. Well, that's
so
good.
If they wouldn't have done that, it would have been a real mess last year trying to figure out what to do.
Fascinating.
So.
Fascinating. So what else is going on for you? Are you turkey hunting this year? Are you going out of state for any hunts for big game? What do you got going on?
Well, I plan on turkey hunting, but that happens every year, but the turkey hunting itself doesn't always happen. It seems to be a busy spring comes around and there's a million things to get caught up on, and it seems to always my week always seems to fall in line with something else I have going on, or my wife has going on. One of us going out of town or something. So I'm planning on it. I spotted turkey out back today. So Tom out strutting out in the way back field. So hopefully I'll get a chance to get out there and get some turkey down. But yeah, I'm hoping to draw a couple tags out west this year. I put in for Wyoming elk general tag. So I'm hoping to see that come through.
Wyoming. One of our listeners is over there, Levi. I'm not sure if he's still he's still watching right now, but he's out of Wyoming. That's where we were looking at going there, and it didn't pan out. So we were going to switch gears, and then obviously with the new baby on the way, the whole thing got the kibosh this year, which is fine. It's unfortunate.
I heard you had a math problem.
Yeah.
That's a regular occurrence.
You got yeah. You got to do the backwards math and then decide, accordingly whether what you're going to do.
Yep. Whoops.
I meant to tell you
putting
that
it
a couple
politely.
years ago, but yeah.
Yeah, I could have. It's funny. Our kids are all 2 years apart, almost. I mean, so far they're 2 years and 8 days apart. We'll see where this next one puts them, but it'll be right around the same mark. So, yeah, and going from man-to-man coverage to zone coverage is going to be really interesting. It feels impossible now, so I don't know what the hell is going to happen. That's just the thing. I just can't, talk about morals and ethics. I just can't leave my wife like that with all of these kids. It's hard enough.
You're going to get called for holding a lot. That's all I'm going to say.
It's tough.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, you'll come up with something eventually.
Elijah
Not
said
this year though.
No. Yeah, but it's fine. It's your planning. Elijah said he filled out his fishing survey today. Good job, Elijah. I know you're here in Wisconsin.
He's a big fisherman, huge fisherman. So
he's gonna go turkey hunting too. Go get yourself a Jake Break sticker from OKS Hunter. Gobble boom for the code there. What else we got? Commenting at the end here. I think with your brother. Jesus. Here's some beer. Bringing up the beer here.
Ryan got you good, man.
That's a good one. That's right.
I think with your broad head, not your little head.
It's gonna go on a shirt. Oh, there's gonna be very few people that get that one.
I like it.
Cool.
I'm gonna archive that one.
Yep.
Your broadhead. Not your what practice tip, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
at least
so
out of
hopefully
this,
I'll get a chance to get out and elk hunt Wyoming, and I put in for a deer tag in Montana with my dad. So hopefully we'll get to go do that.
That's cool. Well, is it
Greg, you gonna be ready if I call you?
well, so I was doing the the classes with Brian, and he moved the class to Tuesday nights. So it's happening right now at Tyrol. It's kind of hard to make it on time for class from Milwaukee to Tyrol.
Yeah.
So I gotta be more diligent about keeping my rear end in shape by doing things on my own.
Are you going to those?
No, I'm not going to them anymore. I can't make
I
them.
was asking Mitch. I heard your answer.
Oh, yeah, no.
If you watched Mitch,
Nope.
he doesn't need to go to those. He's got his own regiment going on.
Yeah, I just the time to drive there is, it'd be cool to go see those guys. We have long history, but just the time it takes and the time I have, the math doesn't work out there. So
I think the hardest part about working up. So if it's anything that makes it more inconvenient, it starts to shut it down. You got to make it as convenient as humanly possible. Otherwise, you just will find an excuse to wedge in there. You won't, Mitch, but others might. Like you said, it's really hard to avoid cookies. It's not hard for me to avoid cookies. I eat a lot of them. I don't know what you're talking about. It's not hard at all. I just eat them.
Well, if I eat more than I think I should and there's still more there, I just put them in the garbage.
That's smart.
Because
the temptation's gone then.
Yeah, I am typically not a waster. I will keep something in the fridge until it visibly looks like I shouldn't eat it. And then I'll probably taste it to make sure. But when it comes to sweets that are sitting around, I'll throw them out.
My wife, hey,
smell this chicken. Because I can't.
Yeah.
But that's just comes along with, I've just calloused myself to them, and I probably sound really negative when I, talk to whoever else might be eating them, but that's just my process.
Yeah. It's funny is I actually don't like sweets too much. So it's pretty, my wife's like, how do you not want to eat all of this? I'm like, I don't know, I just don't like it. But give me a bowl of guacamole and it's a different story. So.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, it's good to catch up.
So, matter of fact, I'll probably
go ahead. See, there's that leg. I'm sorry.
Well, I was interrupting you this time.
I deserve it.
But yeah, matter of fact, I'll probably go work out after I get done here and get caught up on some things.
It's good to go.
Because that's my time is after we put daughter to sleep, get her in bed, catch up on a couple of things, and then I have to go do it. And I just set that as my time to do it. And sometimes I go downstairs and I monkey around and sit there and just think about what I'm going to do and sit there for 20 minutes not doing anything and checking emails and screwing around. But eventually I get angry enough that I've been wasting so much time, I just do it.
Yeah, it's something that nags on you. You've got it drilled into your system now. You have a system, you have a schedule that you're keeping your body on, and if you don't do it, it really bothers the heck out of you. Like I've a few weeks off of doing the class with Brian and John, and it's nagging at me because that was a Saturday morning ritual. Get up early, go do it.
Yeah.
Felt like crap the first time I did it. Second time I felt better. I still, I wasn't nearly as fast as everybody, and I don't think I ever would be because of my deficiencies that I have. But I enjoyed doing it. And
well, yeah, it's not a competition.
No, but it's easy to make it one.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a competition.
Yeah.
Oh, what was I going to say? Well, I don't remember. Oh, yeah, you have in wherever you're doing your workout regimen, you have discipline as freedom, right?
Yes.
I love that.
And right under
it is an inspirational dude.
Mm-hmm. And right under it, just for you, he's going to have think with your broad head, not with your little head.
Oh, gosh, that's great.
That's right. That'll keep you in the gym for a minute longer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I suppose. I mean, Mitch, you're really helpful to people. Are you like available for people to message you if they have questions? Are you pretty open to just chatting to people about this kind of stuff too?
Yeah, absolutely. I get, my information's out there. I'm the Conservation Congress delegate for Sauk County. My phone number and email and everything is on the DNR's website. For that, for the Sauk County CDAC, my information is all there. For dumpster sites in Sauk County, it's there. So my information's out there. And when it comes to any of these type of questions, particularly CWD and dumpsters, yes. When it comes to working out and being motivated and doing that, yes, absolutely. Like that's all part of being, I've been thinking a lot lately about being a mentor, and a lot of people, there's a lot of mentor programs out there, but I really, one of my big mentors passed away in March, and I didn't even think about him as a mentor, but when I started, thinking about him, it's like, everything that I am today was impacted by that guy just doing what he did on a daily basis, and just like living your life in the right way and doing things ethically and being kind and doing things that you find important and being a good family man and just all these things that mentorship it doesn't have to be an official thing. Mm-hmm. Like he never came to me and said, you know what, I think I'm going to mentor you in archery and, and bow hunting and hunting and ethics and baseball and all these things. That was never once spoken. But, when I look back, it's like, I don't know if there's anybody that had more of a profound impact on me without having, an official mentor-mentee relationship. So, I think we can all strive to just help everybody that we can when they ask for it, and when they're not asking for it, just by our actions speaking for themselves.
Absolutely.
Well, maybe I'll be reaching out to you about some of the motivation workout meal plan something. I'm like at the precipice of
anytime, man.
I haven't flown. I hit breaking points, and that's usually I'm about to hit a breaking point of, sedentary lifestyle and trying to problem solve my way through. Where am I going to? It's a time problem. I got to find out where I can carve the time out to do the things that are important to my health, so I can be there for my kids, regardless of the fact that they're the ones taking that time for me. So I got to figure it out.
Yeah, because in 20 years, when you have time to go climb up that mountain, if you've deteriorated to the point where your kids are going to go without you, then, what's the point of that?
Yep.
So thinking today about what's going to happen with them 20 years from now is what my motivation is. So anytime that you want motivation or even unsolicited advice, you're welcome to just get a hold of me, and I'll probably have some sort of advice about something that, whether you ask for it or not.
I dig it. That's cool.
But today, it's just about getting involved and just doing these things.
Right. Yeah. If you don't
in
vote,
our state and go ahead.
Yeah. If you don't vote, you can't really afford to bitch about it.
Yeah. And it goes for things across the country. Places that I like to hunt or want to hunt, I sign up for those newsletters from different game agencies, and when something comes up, I get an email. Like Montana this year had some legislation that somebody brought forth about, that had to do with non-resident hunting tags, and so I, send a little email just every little drop in the bucket. When it comes to legislative stuff, every drop in the bucket helps when you start calling legislators' offices and just saying, hey, this means something to me. That goes on a tally, whether you talk to them or not. It goes on a tally, and that it can lead to an impact that could be favorable.
Sure.
So and being part of different conservation groups, like the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership is one of my favorites. They do just a tremendous amount of work advocating for public lands and spaces and access and all kinds of different things. So, you sign up with places like that. You don't even have to donate to get notifications that lead you to be able to know when you should send your comments to your senators and representatives. So I've just found it really, really helpful, or maybe not just helpful, but rewarding to have found that opportunity for myself and feel like it's led me to become more knowledgeable on a lot of issues that I probably should have been knowledgeable on before.
Yeah, when you're in a position like that, you don't have much of a choice other than to dig in and start to become informed, because people are going to contact you and you're going to want to feel confident in your response. You're comfortable, and you're going to have to learn at some point. If they ask a question, you're going to go figure out the answer, I'm assuming, or talk to some other resources that you can tap in, etc. But you probably learned quite a bit more than you would have otherwise.
Yeah, I found it, just to really be beneficial to me. And you don't have to be on a committee or be anything like that to just learn a little bit about a few issues. And one of the big things, like I saw you posted the other day about picking up trash on public land.
Yeah.
And, that's something, and that's just something that's just leading by example and doing it and calling out people when they're not doing that, or they're doing something that's maybe borderline in ethics. Calling people out when they're doing something that isn't right is a hard thing to do when you know them or your friends, but that's how you turn the tide of like normal.
Right.
Some people think doing things a certain way is normal. Like I remember when I grew up, it was normal to throw a bag of trash out the window of the car. It just seemed like there wasn't even any. Yeah, it's just a status quo, and now it's completely different than that. So, yeah, I guess that's all part of leading by example and speaking up when you see something. That's my participation rant.
Lead by example, lead from the front. That's the best way to lead, in my opinion. There's not a better way to lead, in my opinion, period. Lead from the front. It's good stuff. Yeah, good participation from our listeners tonight. A lot of folks had good commentary, so it's a good topic. I think it resonates with a number of people. You talk about it really eloquently, and we appreciate you taking time out of your busy life. I know you got a lot going on over there to hang out with us tonight. I know you got to go hit the basement gym or whatever, so it's good stuff. We'll get this thing packed up and produced this evening, so it'll be out there for everyone else to listen to that might have missed it or wants to listen again or whatever. And just so people can find you, Mitch, what's the best modality? I know you said your contact information is out there publicly, but for those that are going to be in the social channels, where should they go to check you out and learn more?
I would say on Instagram, the mitch.baker.100 would be a good place. Just send direct message there. That'd be a good one. And, certainly on Facebook, but there's probably 1,000 Mitch Bakers. So sometimes that's hard to.
You're the coolest one we know, though. So.
You're the only one you're the only one we know. There can only be one. That's good stuff. Well, I'm going to end the live broadcast. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. This will be out later this evening. Hopefully I have no technical problems, and it'll be in last week when I was doing the podcast, it wasn't until like midnight. So hopefully that doesn't happen again. Need some rest.
Hopefully not.
All right, cool. I'm going to end the live stream, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. All the participation was awesome.